podcast. A bit of an understatement when I'm like, hey, how do I pronounce your name? As someone that has a difficult to pronounce last name, I'm always very sensitive to that. But we're welcoming on for the first time brother Amer Abu-Houran to the Craftsman Online podcast. Welcome, my brother.
Welcome, welcome. By the way, there's a screen that is popped that says recording has stopped. I just want to make sure that it's. Do you see it?
Let's see here. You need to
Oh,
refresh and
I,
then join from a browser, but not an incognito. Yep.
so want to continue or?
I feel like it's a rain delay in baseball. There we go. He's coming back. He got caught by the podcast police. I'm pretty confident we're back on now. As we welcome back our most understanding, patient, and easygoing guest, brother Amer Abu-Houran to the Craftsman Online podcast. Again, welcome back. A two-time guest on your first shot. That's an honor.
Thank you. I am humbled.
Also, one of the most authentic New York guests that we've had, as you can tell for those our YouTube live streamers, that is not a background. That is a real life look at New York City. Where are you joining us from tonight?
I'm from Long Island City, like on the
Nice.
East River. Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at what? That's Manhattan behind you.
Yes, like Roosevelt Island and Manhattan.
Very, very nice. Very nice. Well, it's touching because we're talking about light. That is the episode. That's the article of the. That's the title of the article that you've written for the upcoming winter edition of the Empire State Magazine. You open your article with a line that every Mason is a seeker of light and that you can relate that light to truth. Before we get into like the Masonic view of all of this, what is it about truth that makes it so hard for people to define it or even sometimes agree with truth being truth?
That is actually a great question because sometimes we think we like don't pause and think about the day to day, even the vocabulary that we use, but we need to pause and reflect. So, for example, let me ask the listeners to do this exercise with me real quick. So, try to think of something that you know to be true. Try to just to identify something. You don't have to say it out loud, obviously, since now this is a one-way stream. But try to think and identify in your head one thing that you know to be true, that you don't doubt it at all. Like in your heart, you know that it's 100% true. You can pause the podcast like if you want more time. But now let me ask you this question. How do you know that that thing is true?
Hmm.
Try to find an or think of an answer. How do you know that that thing that you identified in your head is true? Is it true simply because you grew up with it? Is it true because your family or close ones believe in it too? Is it true because it's something that is testable, that you can actually in a scientific way test it and make and verify the results? Or is it true because you feel it? You have a gut feeling inside that tells you that this is true. Or is it true because you observed it? You saw it in your eyes, you tasted it maybe, you felt it, you saw it. Or is it true because most people believe that it's true? Or is it true because people of authority and credibility say that it's true? You know, we need to pause and think here for a second because this actually opens the door for let me give you let's have a quick example over here. Let's just
Mm.
imagine that we have an apple, okay, a red apple. So if I looked at it, I would say that that apple is red, that apple is spherical, it's shiny, it's maybe crunchy, and so on. So what I just did there is I made truth claims about that apple. Now imagine that you have a friend that is colorblind, and that friend, you don't know that he's colorblind, and he doesn't know that he's colorblind. And then you ask him to make some truth claims about the apple, just to describe the apple. They might say, oh, it has a dullish green. Hmm, we're looking at the same thing. Now, somebody might say, you know what, this is an easy solve problem. We already stipulated that that person has a faulty instrument, like there's an anomaly over there. So the apple is actually red, and he has a faulty vision of some sort, and so on. But let's raise the bar a little bit, and let's just imagine that all of us are actually colorblind. Then how would we know what the actual color of the apple is, right?
Right.
So in the end we can actually come to the conclusion that this is actually not a truth problem, this is a knowledge problem, because the apple itself is red regardless, but it's our perception, the way that we have access to that information, that's what determines, or the belief that we have of that apple is the one that determines where the problem sometimes arise from, truth.
It's an interesting truth experiment, for lack of a better term. I've played this game before where it's like, how would you describe the color blue to a blind person? And you're like, oh my gosh, like that's, think about it. Like looking up at the sky, like, do you describe it as water? Do you describe it as salt? Like, how do you describe colors? So it's interesting you're getting your perspective on shaping truth this way. What I also found fascinating was your background. So you're a computer science guy
Mm-hmm.
and you're into the theory of knowledge. How did you develop this pursuit or this even truth experiment that you just put us through from your professional background into your personal life? Can you walk us through those steps?
Yeah, actually, because like, yes, my professional background is in computer science and artificial intelligence and coding, programming, and all of these things. But basically, I am an educator.
Mm,
So although I pursued that, like my undergrad degree was in computer science, but then once I discovered my own passion, which is to make a difference in other people's, that's when I realized that I want to become a teacher, and in education. So things slightly shifted, although it's basically the same path. So I focus more on the education aspect, and I've been always fascinated about sometimes when you watch a debate, for example, like it's in the pursuit of truth, but is a debate the right platform to
hmm.
pursue truth, or is it just to see whose ability is more, or who is well articulated, or has more debating skills, and so on. So philosophy itself has always been fascinating, and right now I teach like different classes, computer science university level degree to high schoolers and other things. But I also teach theory of knowledge, which is short for TOK, which is an essence of what we're discussing right now,
Gotcha.
which is really interesting to see how students think about their own thinking. We
Mm.
really need to have that skill to think about our own thinking, to think about the way that we learn, the way that we approach literally life.
Right. I'm thinking, Amir, there were two things that I want to talk to you about as a Freemason. That was you're going through your degrees and you're first attending lodges and you're hearing us say these words. For example, what was your thought the first time you heard the word truth as far as like a Masonic principle? What what were your thoughts when you heard that?
You mean before becoming a Mason or after?
While you were a Mason and we were talking about truth being one of our pillar beliefs, one of our core Masonic values.
Exactly. And here's what's really interesting about Masonry and about truth. We are not like truth is not something that is going to be revealed in a in a in a way that is like, this is truth. Okay, that's it. Can you give me another secret or another thing? It's
Mm,
not that. We are actually called for something that is beyond. So what I believe is that Masonry doesn't look at truth as a definition or like from a philosophical approach. It looks at truth as something, as a way of living. It's something that you approach. It's something that you, it's kind of like, the saying, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
So basically, it's about living in that truth. So when we say, for example, brotherly love, or when we say charity, or when we say, just like, being there for the community, are these merely words or slogans, or are these things that we live by and abide by?
Mm.
That's the bigger thing.
The other thing that fascinated me was you talked a lot about logic with the theory of knowledge, and as we did the little truth experiment. Well, if this is true, then this must also be true. Logic also is one of the things you hear a lot about in the fellowcraft degree as one of the seven liberal arts and sciences that we apply in Freemasonry. Where did your mind go when you were sitting there as a fellowcraft going through that second degree and you're hearing the lecture and you hear about, and logic relates to this?
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, if I were to pause for a second and reflect and go back, it was almost like a surreal moment over there, trying to understand at the beginning, hearing things for the first time. But then once you go back to and reflect upon, you begin to see that, you know what, this is like a storytelling. This
Mm,
is more of something that is approached in a living way rather than in a more theoretical approach, or like scientific approach, 1 plus 1 equals 2, then you separate this from that, and so on and so forth, because we are talking about life here, and life is something that is bigger than its own definition.
mm,
It's something that is worth living. So for me, and even like later, because at the lodge, we do also invest heavily in education, where we support our brothers and so on, to understand the journey and do these amazing things. Um, it's a chance, literally, for us that things when they click, it's like almost you can see a light bulb
mm-hmm.
ahead, on your head or whatever. That light bulb actually still lights. It's not something that you discover and learn and that's it. It's something that you, it's like something that is unveiled to you, even though that you went through whatever text or ritual or ceremony or a lecture, so to speak. It's really fascinating, and I want to encourage also, for example, the listeners, if they are in town, if they get the chance to visit the Grand Lodge here and see the amazing artwork. It's
Mm.
like literally telling the story, sitting in the lodge room. For example, we meet at the Renaissance room, which is an amazing, amazing room. So sitting there and just like making the connections towards everything that is there on the walls, that's a journey by itself, a journey of the mind.
Yeah. And I think you could do that. I mean, I won't argue. I am partial with you. I believe I'm totally biased. Grand Lodge in New
I,
York has some of the most beautiful lodge rooms within the Grand Lodge building. And I'm super envious of all my brothers in the metro area that get to attend. And that is your experience every single time you go to lodge. Because it's breathtaking for those of us coming to visit for the first time. But you do bring up a good point that, when your mind tends to wander during those exciting business meetings that your lodge has to have every couple of months, um, look around and question some of these things that we have all agreed upon as truth and take those other angles. And that little moment of self reflection, I think that that's going to be pretty special. It's the Craftsman Online
100%.
podcast. We're super lucky this week. Our guest is brother Amer Abu-Houran, and his article is called In Search of Light. It's going to be out in the winter edition of the Empire State Magazine. And if he gives us permission, we're going to put it on the Craftsman Online website, and then you can get it there as well. I want to get into some of the Masonic ideas that you explore, because we talked about philosophy, the philosophers, the different ways to understand the truth. And you touch on all of this as well in your article, the perspectives that we all bring into things. I want to get to when it comes to practicing masonry in everyday life. And truth can be a really hard thing, especially, and it's tough for me when you had mentioned before, you turn on a debate, or the debate could even be two separate televisions, both carrying the same live event that is happening in front of you, and you have two different perspectives that are happening. How do you apply this truth principle, or this truth experiment, as you laid it out, in everyday life when you have two people in front of you talking about the same thing but from completely different perspectives?
Actually, it's a very interesting take over here because if you want to look at, for example, at philosophy. I mean, we're not gonna just focus on philosophy, but it gives you a good way of thinking. There are like two school of thoughts regarding philosophy and the truth. There is the coherence theory of truth and then of knowledge, and then there is the correspondence theory. In
Mm.
the coherence theory, it's like they say that truth is something that makes sense in your own system. For example, if you say that the grass is green, I've seen grass, I've interacted with it, I know that the color is green, it makes sense to me, and so on and so forth, so this must be true. But if I live in an area, for example, I don't know, where it's always snowing and I never got the chance to even see what green is, that truth is nothing to me. There's no connection, there's nothing in it. So
Mm.
it's like as if things make sense only if it makes sense within an order or so to speak, a coherence thing. There's another school of thought that says truth is a matter of correspondence. Like, let's just say that the Knicks played yesterday and they won. We
We
can
know that's
know
not
that.
true.
No, come on.
Sorry.
Not an Knicks fan?
No, I am a Nick. It's just I know that
Oh,
there's truth behind every joke.
so we can know for sure if they won or not by, for example, checking the results, and that is the correspondence. So the truth is true whether you believe in it or not. So going back to your question, when you said that sometimes when you're watching two different debates or two different perspectives there, and in fact, actually, this is something that I always encourage my students to think about. For example, you have heard, of course, confirmation biases and so on and so forth, right? Like, for example, if I believe in something, and let's just say that I claim that, hey, I want to study and learn more about it so that I can come from a stronger point and perspective. And if you look at so to speak, the resources of where I want to study from or read articles of or whatever, if they are chosen based on my perspective, then they're just going to affirm what I already know.
Mm.
But do I have the courage? Do you have the courage to see the other perspective, to see it as it is? I'm always honestly fascinated by judges. We have a lot of brothers who've been judges and so on and so forth in that system. But how would they? Because they know what the law says, they know what the whatever happened, like in any situation. But then they try to see it from different perspectives, so that they can reach a conclusion, which is a decision that needs to be made, or a judgment or a call for
Mm.
that aspect. Not many people can actually hold two different truths that contradicts each other at the same time. Most people, they just like want to choose something that they believe in, whether something that confirms whatever they know, or something that doesn't really shatter their existence, so to speak, because of everything is built on our own morals, our own values that we take. But do you have the courage to see the other perspective? That's something to think about. And also at the same time, also going back to your question, when there are different perspectives,
Mm.
because what is a perspective? Perspective is like a point of view,
Yep.
correct?
Competing
Like, and
viewpoints. Yeah.
for example, since we mentioned judges and courtrooms and whatever, sometimes you may have more than one eyewitness that they witnessed the same incident or the same, but each person has their own take on it.
Mm.
And sometimes it contradicts each other. Like
Yeah.
you would
Yeah.
wonder, like, why? I mean, you both witnessed the same action, but how come you have totally different perspectives? And this is what you can take a look at this as something that is confusing or something that is enriching,
Mm.
that we can enrich each other by our own diversity, by our own different, so to speak, like to think about it now let's talk about a little bit about computer and 3D graphics. Like if you have a model, like let's just say that I have this and I need to scan it in 3D, so I
Mm.
would have different shades so that I can have a complete image.
So you could replicate your iPhone or your iPod case. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like at least to have it so that I can rotate it and see it, and from different shades, different perspectives, and so on.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting you talk about that. You led right into a question that was on the top of my mind here. So biases, I think that was the word you were trying to use. And we were talking about we all have different
mhm.
viewpoints. Especially, I found it interesting you talk about judges. I never really considered that they have to consider all the facts of the case and what's fair for both sides while the argument is literally being argued in front of them. Is it okay to have a bias? And when does having that bias kind of cross the line of fact, truth, and untruth or alternate fact?
That's a very, very good question. And honestly, when I think about that, do we have biases? 100%.
Mm,
But it's not about that you need to take away your biases, because you cannot do that. You are built in a certain way. I am built in a certain way. I have my perspective on life based on my experiences, the things that I went through, and not necessarily only the things that I went through, the things that I saw other people
yeah.
going through. We learn not only from our experiences, but also from other people. But I think it's about the awareness of these biases, because you cannot take them away,
Mm,
but you can actually just realize that they're there,
yeah.
acknowledge their existence, and then try to see whatever you're trying to see. It's like, for example, like there's like in computer science, there's a problem that we cannot really come up with a true random number.
Mm,
Like the random number, we cannot really, because nothing is really random. So, because if you program it, you can trace it, you can trace the algorithm back, so you can predict. So that's why, in order to get sometimes a random number, we tie it to something in real life. For example, an electron or something that happens, or maybe a temperature outside, and then take that changing factor as input, because you cannot really predict. And then from that, we can reach a random number or something.
I
So
feel
there are
like I feel like that's the reason why those stupid CAPTCHA forms exist on websites, is they're helping you guys with the randomness of things. I'm sorry to interrupt,
oh
but that just came
yeah.
to mind.
Yeah, no, there's there's another theory over there that you're actually training and helping AI by doing
Mm.
that solving the problem, like the machine learning, but that's a different topic.
Mm. But sometimes, as you're saying, like even when you're trying to perfect something, and I think
Mhm.
that's the point you're getting to, you still have to go out to nature and to the real world to find the randomness that is everyday life. And I love how you're talking about, I totally agree with you that our own perspectives are shaped by the experiences that we've gone through. And this is what I love about Freemasonry. And I did want to get to like tying this together, right? Is that when you get to be around a group of other like minded men who have nothing really in common with you except the fact that you're Freemasons and you've shared this experience of becoming Freemasons and all the things that make us brothers. But when you hear their stories of life, those alternate inputs are now building your database, let's say, of life. And now your circle has gotten your perspective has widened so much more.
100%.
Mm.
100%. Although technically we shouldn't say 100%, because what is 100%, right? But
Right, right, right.
but basically, I agree with you. When I look at my brothers, like, and this is, I'm sincere over here. When I look at my brothers and the way that they build me and I build them, the way that we build each other, and the experiences that we put on a table, I have nothing but appreciation, like, for these. And the phrase that we stand at the shoulders of those who came before us.
Yeah.
I believe in that. I believe in it. Like, the fact that we are standing now is because somebody else actually did their part and beyond.
Mm.
Like our lodge, for example, it stands because there has been real men, upright men, who actually did the work, who actually persevered, and that's why we are actually here today. And this is why it's really wise to be humbled,
Mm.
to recognize that you are part of something that is bigger than you, and your contribution is that it's a small part for something that is bigger than the total sum of its parts.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And this is what I find attractive about masonry, is that you have brothers that walk different paths of lives, and to reach a way that you can actually share and learn from each other, that is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just put a price tag on that one, and it's something that I literally appreciate, is the fact that when I sit, especially with brothers who have been in the craft longer than me, you know, you always learn from these guys.
Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. Like, I was thinking of a Masonic lesson that you just kind of brought to life, or brought to light, I should say, as the article. But it's one of those that I love because it has infinite possibilities and understandings, which is the point within a circle. And we're told in Freemasonry that there, in every circle, there is that one individual point, and what all of this means. But you could quickly apply this to the experience that you're just talking about. That in life, if life is the circle, we are that small little dot that exists somewhere in that. And when you add up all the other people that you're going to interact with in your life, you're going to fill in that circle with all of those other experiences, thus creating kind of the quote, not to sound like the Disney Lion King movie here, but creating that circle of life, so to speak, right? But it's important to understand that we are all going to have different perspectives, and that biases aren't bad, and that different views of the truth, or what is true, is not necessarily good versus evil, and that there are tools that are available to us as Masons. And I kind of want to touch on this a little bit too, is our working tools, and how these tools help us kind of do that self-reflection of really evaluating, like, okay, I know that I have a bias, I know I have a preference to this or that, I know I rush to judge quickly because of this or that. And maybe if I start using the 24-inch gauge, or the common gavel, or the square and the compasses, like these things that I've had to study so much throughout my Masonic degrees, instead of just using that information at the time to show that I was proficient to move to the next degree, how can I use this in my everyday life really practically, by just thinking about, how do I want to be judged? By the square. Why by the square? Because this is what the square means, and how am I using this right now and in this moment?
Yes, yes, and in fact, again, like you can sit in a lodge and just like recite the words,
Mm,
or you can actually have the courage to live and abide yourself by them. And this is where it comes. For example, I'm a strong believer in the power of reflection, because you go through different things in life, through different experiences. You deal with different people, different brothers, different everything. But if you pause and reflect and think, this breeds wisdom. Wisdom doesn't come from nothing.
hmm
And it doesn't even come from situations that happens to us. It's that when we reflect on these situations and we choose to learn from these situations, that's how we can ignite, wisdom. That's how we can grow to become a better version of ourselves. So it's literally everything boils down to reflection, and everything that we go through, whether it's in lodge, outside the lodge, and the wonderful and amazing opportunities that we have through the Masonic, for example, courses, the library, all of the amazing resources that we have at our hands. This is how you can get to choose to learn from. When we meet new prospects, and you get the chance to see where they are, where they're coming from, and why do they want to join in, and so on.
mm,
And also because you need to be truthful towards them, and say that, hey, you know in Masonry, you get what you put in. If you put in more in Masonry, you can get more. It's literally about you. It's not something like a magic word that you can come in and then voila,
mm.
like Disney style, whatever. Like a magic wand that things will change. It's a personal journey. That's why we have maybe different degrees and different paths. Of course, trying to maintain here
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. You're
what
you're
we can. Yeah, yeah.
bro
But
is literally speaking the truth here. I don't want to interrupt. Just keep going.
yeah, I mean, like, again, it's a personal journey. Let's
hmm
agree on that. It's a personal journey. You can grow, and that's why I guess you see brothers who actually grow and learn, and brothers who just sit and watch and enjoy. This does not take away from their value as brother, because our value is not does not depend on what we do. We have value in us as brothers, as upright men.
Mm.
You are my brother. I love you. I appreciate you for who you are, not for what you can or cannot do. So let's like put that into perspective. But again, if you put more, you actually, and if you sit more with your brothers, you have more fellowship, more collation after like large meetings, or like have more interactions. It's definitely better than just so to speak, watching from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you're in the craft, once you're in the work, that's when we can get to work on our ashlars, right? From rough ones into the perfect ashlar, hopefully. And it's a journey. It's a journey. It's not, so to speak, a destination or a magic moment that happens once.
In Search of Light is the article. You can find it in the winter edition of the Empire State Magazine. If you're a New York Freemason, it would just get sent right to your house. Well, not anymore. Now it comes through an app, which is actually
An
pretty
app,
cool.
yes,
Yeah,
on the
which is awesome. Brother Amer Abu-Houran is our guest this week on the Craftsman Online podcast. I want to take a quick pause on talking about the article. We'll get back into it because I promise I got still a ton more questions on it. I want to ask a couple of questions about the article and how it came about itself. And I would put money on this because most guests that I've had on the podcast who've either written an article or taken it to the next level and written a book, all of this started from a lodge program or some sort of discussion or a part of the ritual that you experienced that kind of ignited that fire for you to start writing, start researching, start pulling this all together. What's the story behind your work that we have tonight?
Um, Well, basically, honestly, like we are going through different changes, positive ones, in our lodge where we're focusing more and more on education. We have amazing group of brothers who are investing in education, and the district is also actually as well. And it came honestly just because of the concept of sharing. Like
Mm,
we need just to share, because here's the thing: if you look at humanity, like generally speaking, not from a Masonic perspective, just from a regular humble person perspective outside, if you zoom out, and you can recognize that there's a pattern. If we share, if we take on something, share on it, and pass it along, that's how we can actually grow. That's how we can actually help humanity to even grow, so to speak, in the collective.
mm.
So it becomes like by the concept of just simply sharing. You know what? I learned something today. Let me share it. Let me share it with my brothers. And we do that, for example, through our lodge. We have education sessions on Zoom, and sometimes, like a group of friends, we would sit and discuss different things. But let's make the circles a little bit bigger, right? Because we like to share it with our bigger family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I appreciate the Empire State Magazine, for example. You get to actually hear and see what other brothers are doing in other districts and other lodges all across the state. And that was like, honestly, like, hey, you know what? Let's just share, because that's a great resource that we need to utilize in order to share, bounce off different ideas. We don't necessarily have to agree, but we can agree on one thing: that, hey, you know what? Let's strengthen each other.
Mm. Right, worshipful brother Astley Raymond, good friend of the Craftsman Online podcast, and to yours truly as the managing editor of the Empire State Mason magazine. Can you take us back to the moment when you found out, hey, Amir, you get this phone call, you get this email, maybe you get to talk to him. Your article is going to be published in the next edition. What was that like?
Oh, it was like humbling, and that was actually very exciting, because again, like, um um it wasn't, like, so to speak, planned, because everything was like, it happened real quick,
Hmm.
so to speak. And it was like, again, it's a humbling experience, like, to share your thoughts with the brothers, and get feedback. And I shared it with a couple of brothers, and I received like amazing feedback from them, a lot of encouragement. So that's actually something that I want to encourage the rest of my brothers also to take advantage of. Again, if you have something, please do share.
Mm.
And again, this is how we build on each other. And it doesn't necessarily has to be something like I was trying, honestly, my best to move away from the academic perspective so that it can reach everybody, because you need to appreciate that we are all coming from different backgrounds, and that's where we can actually learn from each other. And so this is one outlet. You have other outlets, like, for example, your podcast, which is something that is really an amazing source, and you can listen to it, anywhere. It's a podcast, and
Yeah.
it's something that you can actually get to meet a lot of different brothers, and to see what they're doing, and how they contribute to the greater good. That's amazing.
Mm.
So I want to thank you a moment
Oh,
for
well,
you, for your amazing work.
well, the praise is for you, but I'll take it where I can get it. No, and I completely agree with like the underlying point you made. I tell brothers this all the time. We're not expecting you to be the next Albert Pike or the next Manly, P. Hall or any of the great Masonic thinkers or writers. But there's a whole reason why a lodge is interested in a candidate, just as a candidate is interested in a lodge, right? We want to start this relationship. And
Hmm.
it's not just about making you a Mason and then you just kind of like showing up at meetings and doing it's whatever is inside of you. We're hoping to get some of that. We want to know what your perspectives are, what your thoughts are, because there is no the answer to Freemasonry. There's many answers about things, and
Hmm.
we all have different ones. Just as you've talked about perspectives and bias and truths and light and all, whatever word you want to use, we're all going to come from different areas. And being in that circle and being the point of that circle for a moment and being able to exchange, like that's what makes Freemasonry cool. And to your other point, like I've known brothers that, I mean, they don't really contribute very much in lodge meetings. They're never one of the first ones to make a motion or a second or volunteer for any of the committees or anything, but every once in a while they blow me away when we actually start having a program or a discussion and they offer this like really heavy, well thought out point. You're like, wow, where did you kind of pause for a second? You're like, where did that come from? Like that's the big thing. I love that you're saying like contributing to your lodge and to the craft is more than just going to a meeting, but it's actually being involved and doing something outside of it. And again, when it comes to contributing thoughts and ideas, just as you've said, like you're not a professional writer, I'm not as well. That's where this podcast and everything for me came from, was just having an idea, putting some thoughts down on paper, sharing it with my lodge, then getting up and giving a presentation in lodge and feeling confident about something, doing more research, opening a door to something else. Like really the sky's the limit when it comes to seeking the truth. Ready to get back into the article. In Search of Light, not only are you talking about truth, but you also write about humility through faith. And it's interesting because light and truth are also kind of tied to that part. And in Freemasonry, we know that we talk about the greatest order of all, the great architect of the universe. So, how does having this awareness of humility, faith, light, and truth, how does this kind of help shape our pursuit of quote unquote perfection or being better in everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, and you can see it, by the way, evidently sometimes in different meetings, where you would see that the most experienced person is often the most silent one in big groups and big meetings, because they analyze, they hear, they reflect on their journey and so on. So it's like, there's a quote that says, "The more I know, the more I realize, the less I know." Think about it for a second. The more I know, the more I realize how little, how small, how less I actually know, because we live in a world that is so bigger than us. And this is where humility actually comes in, because through faith, because when you believe in something that is bigger than you, when you know that no matter what you do, you're a single, and this is, by the way, maybe this is a personal philosophy for me, but I believe in the rebel effect. Like, yes, I am a single individual person. What I can do more is like, if you put like a little rock or like in a pond, or you will see the wave, the rebel effects, and they
Mm.
grow, and this will make the motion and the move for maybe another particle, another thing, to move along in the same frequency, and so on and so forth. um, this breeds humility, because once you know that you are part of something bigger than you, like, there's no one who can claim that they know the absolute truth, and period. That's it. Like, they have concluded. It's like you're playing a game. You just finish the game. I just beat the game. I just, like, get the highest score. It, life is more. It's more than
Mm.
that, and that comes, like, again, with wisdom.
I want to get to the article when you talked about quotes. One of my favorite quotes, and during my lodge visits this year, I will be using this one. So I want to make sure it's attributed to you right now. When you say that our rituals and symbols are not the destination, but the
Mm.
path. And I felt like I made the same mistake when I was getting my third degree. I'm like, well, I guess this is where, my journey in Freemasonry ends. And an older brother came and said, no, 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 no. It's the beginning that's happening right now. Like, I was like, whoa. Like, so we talk a lot about reflection and truth seeking and ritual, and how, in your opinion, that quote so deep, how do we take these points and use them so that we can keep building on our path?
It's like literally when you sit in the lodge room, when you memorize a ritual, or when you partake, or even just observe what brothers do, and so on. If you think in a more rigid way, so to speak, like what you see is literally what you get, then that's not really a good perspective over there, because you're just like, oh, so the purpose is for me just to memorize this piece of text. Okay,
Mm.
I'll memorize it, and then you just go recite it. You can memorize. You have the ability to do so, like the capability in your head to do so, but let's bring those words into life. When you look at the seats, for example, and at the brothers who are actually doing the floor work and all of this, it's literally, it's like a story.
Mm.
It's like a story that is being unfolded and being told, even though that you might hear it more than once. It's like, yeah, sometimes, when you watch a movie and you love it so much, you just go ahead and watch it again, or a book that you read it again. And sometimes by doing so, you uncover a different thing that you might miss, or now you understand it in a different light, and so on, so to speak. So it's when you choose that these words are to have meaning, and that meaning goes beyond the simple reciting or simple, saying them at the lodge. When we say the 24 inch, gauge and stuff, okay, I can memorize that. But when you divide those and you go abide them, that's where the real challenge is. The real challenge is that when you live and abide by those in your own bedroom, in your own way to work, on your own, by when you're by yourself,
Mm.
and that's the real challenge.
Yeah, that touches on the other quote that you had that I lifted out of the article, is that Freemasonry, you say, Masonry endures because its purpose is timeless, to help men live in alignment with brotherly love, relief, and truth. And it's interesting because I feel that too often we act and live in a world where we feel like no one's watching, although this is like probably the one point in the history of civilization where there's more cameras and eyes on you and every
Mm-hmm.
little thing that you're doing, even when you think you're doing nothing, than in ever before. But that's not really what's important, is what everybody else is watching. It's what the one who's watching all is watching and seeing in you, and how are you reflecting those principles every day. And that's what I really loved about the quote. Like, where did that come from you, the idea that Freemasonry is this thing?
It comes from the accountability part,
Mm.
because if you don't believe in something that's bigger than you, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in the supreme being, if you don't believe that you will be held accountable to your promises that you make, to your obligations, to all of that, then your words mean nothing. I really appreciate the upbringing where you're a man, your word is your bond, is your
Mm.
bond. Your word have meaning and it has weight, and it's only because of that we can actually establish any transaction, any business transaction, any whether it was in like a work related matter, or even on a personal level, because in the end, when things boil down to the core, like it's literally about your values. It's literally about uh, um, your morals, because if you get to do that, then when let's find a nicer way to putting it. When beep hits the fan, when things go wild,
Right.
like that's when the true selves come in.
Mm.
Like that's when you know what you're really made of. Are you gonna ditch your principles? Are you gonna ditch your values because it got hard, because
Mm.
it got a little bit tough, or this is where you shine, this is where your light shine? It's like when it's like, for example, practicing a hobby. You know what? Like for me, I play the piano, I play the guitar, like to, whenever there's time and I'm in the mood, whatever, I just go and start to, play and do these things. But when I have a very busy schedule, when I have work commitment, when I have whatever, I can say, you know what, it's okay. I'm not going to do it today. I
Mm.
have other priorities. But if I ditch my values, then my values are actually hobbies. It's something that you do whenever it's convenient. And that's where you draw the line, where you have the accountability, the things that goes beyond what is there.
Mm.
And that's why, for example, like even like for me, honestly, like I even choose my circles carefully. Like I care a lot about values, and you can see that obviously through experience when you deal with other people. But because motives, nobody can see motives.
Mm.
You will know your own motives, but people can see your actions. And that's they say actions speak louder than
Yeah.
words and stuff. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was thinking of a conversation I had with Angel Millar, brother Angel Millar, many years back when he talked about virtue. And he's like, "Oh, okay, so in Freemasonry you can get the title of, being a knight, but do you really act like a knight and every day? Are you being charitable?" No, sir. And like I did the same thing. I kind of laughed. He's like, "But you start with the most basic title in Freemasonry, which is brother. And are you really being a brother to everyone that you come across with in life?" And I'm like, "Wow, that is such a really profound statement." It was kind of interesting. Speaking of brother, you are the first brother that I've had on the podcast in a long time that I met the opposite way, where I actually got to meet you in person before you were a guest on the podcast.
Yes.
We got to meet with a bunch of other brothers at the Grand
Yes.
Masters Day at West Point back in November with Most Worshipful Brother Stephen Adam Rubin, and that was an amazing event. And it was awesome that you came up and introduced yourself and talked about this article and the excitement of getting published and being in the Empire State Mason magazine, and just immediately hit it off. I'm like, dude, you've got to come on the podcast, and thank you for sharing this article. I'm going to read it on the way home. I know it's unfair to ask authors these questions, but I must. You already wrote one article that was published. What do you have planned for a second one, or a lodge program, or any kind of presentation you'll be doing after this?
Well, yeah, but on that point, a big shout out to Right Worshipful Brother Jason Short, because he's the
Yes.
one who got us connected, and brother, much appreciated. And so, yeah, going back to this, honestly, like as a first time experience, putting that together, I think it's a great outlet,
Mm.
so to speak, to share and do these things again in a much bigger circles than what we already do. Because we already do that in our lodge. We already do that. We have, for example, in our lodge, we launched something called Brothers Lifting Brothers, which is a series where we have talks about from each brother can share things from their own world, from their own experience, whether it was professional one or otherwise, or something that they learned. So we have meetings that are dedicated for that. Our
Oh,
upcoming one
nice.
is actually like this, exactly. And that's again, we need to speak. We need to talk to each other. We need to
Mm.
share. And again, this is how we can strengthen each other out by simply just sharing. And again, like you don't have to agree with everything that is being said or whatever, but just I'm a strong believer in the concept of exposure. If you are exposed to something, you see, and then you choose what to take. You
Mm.
know, it's exposure is a powerful tool, because sometimes if you just like are in your own bubble, yes, you will get the chance maybe to learn from people around you, but you're going to be limited in that sense, so to
Hmm.
speak. But if you expose yourself to something that is much bigger, that's where a lot of opportunities like this amazing one that we had, and I'm really grateful that we did, gonna
Come together.
happen.
Yeah. I'm glad you got out
Yeah,
of your
come
bubble,
together.
man. That was the
Yeah,
best.
yeah, of course. And by the way, I'm gonna see you tomorrow.
Oh, I was
FYI.
I was going to ask you that off camera, but
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Well, one more thing before I forget,
Yes.
because sometimes it happens. I think of every question, I write them down. I have some that come to me while we're talking. Was there anything that I didn't ask you that you're like, you know what, I need to say this. I want to think, or did we cover everything here tonight?
Actually, if you don't mind, I would love to read only the last part
Go for it, man.
in
Go for
in
it. Yeah.
the uh, in the in the article, because I think it's deep. At least for those who are not going to get the chance maybe to see it itself. Okay. So it says truth, because we discuss truth and everything.
Hmm.
Truth then is not found in a single revelation or degree. It lives in the discipline of shaping the rough ashlar of our thoughts and actions towards the perfect one through continual self correction and reflection. We may never grasp the ultimate truth in its fullness, but we can live truthfully. If we do, we become part of something greater than ourselves. A current light, a current of light flowing through generations of brothers who sought at the same aim, to live honorably, humbly, and in harmony with what is right. Perhaps this is why the craft endures even as the world changes around it. Membership numbers may rise or fall, but the search for truth will always draw sincere hearts. Masonry does not survive because of promotion or persuasion. It survives because its purpose is timeless, to help men live in alignment with the tenets of brotherly love, relief, and truth. The real light of Masonry shines not from our words or symbols alone, but from our lives, from the lives we built, the patience we show, and the integrity we practice when no one is watching. Truth is not something any one of us can fully claim. It is something we move towards together, shaped by the systems of the lodge, by the system of the lodge and the grace of our labor. And that perhaps is the enduring power, enduring work of every Mason to keep the light alive through right actions and humility.
That's what we got to go out on. Brother Amer Abu-Houran, thank you so much for being on this episode of the Craftsman Online podcast.
Thank you, brother. I'm really humbled. Thank you so much for this great opportunity, and also, it's a great. Hopefully, we will see more of each other again tomorrow.
Nice.
So yeah.